Hello, friends. Welcome back to Film Chewing. We are going through the Oscars project, and this week we are discussing the 1972 Best Picture, The Godfather. And the nominees that year were Cabaret, Deliverance, The Immigrants, and Sounder. I almost didn't read off the other nominees because it's like, why? But, because for consistency's sake. So we're here with Chris and Jared, and we also have Joshua here.
Why though? Why?
Because it's fun.
Because it's fun.
Because it's fun, goddammit.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, glad you could join us. So it had been a while since I've seen this one, and it was actually better than I remember it being.
Good point.
Yep, seems to get better every time I see it.
Exactly. That's the exact same feeling I had. Of course. Yeah.
It's a brilliant movie.
Yeah.
Capital B.
Yeah.
Capital B. It's kind of, when people say what's their favorite film of all time, and people say The Godfather or Godfather 2, people kind of roll their eyes a little bit, go, well, obviously, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it really is a brilliant film. Like, it rewatching it kind of just reinforces that, and for a load of the reasons, I was trying to go into it kind of thinking, right, what makes this so good in some ways, and well, hopefully we'll get into that in some way.
Can I ask, how did you guys watch it? Like streaming, VHS, DVD, Blu-ray, 4K? How, where? With the rewatch. All right.
Sure.
Yeah, I have
a DVD. Yeah, I have a DVD Blu-ray, but I watched it 4K stream. Yeah.
Okay. I use my my Blu-rays. That's the only version I have.
Yeah.
I watched it on OLED and then rewatched it on my plasma, just to see if there is any difference with the blacks, because this movie is dark.
Yeah.
And the one thing that came out of it, picture-wise, except for the dark, the film grain. This movie is just made out of film grain. And the first time I watched it, I hated it. Like, not the movie itself, but I was like, but I bought it on Blu-ray. That was the first time I watched it. And I was so disappointed. And with rewatching it, like you said, Jared, I loved it more. And then I saw, like, if this movie didn't have that film grain, it wouldn't work.
Yeah. It does, but too glossy would have held it back, definitely. Sure. And as we sort of talked about even in a couple of films before, the film grain was a very heavy theme of the 70s movies in general, especially those that were trying to go for some level of realism. It's sort of give it, like French Connection, had very strong grain as well. A lot of the films that we have in the 70s have that very strong idea that people kind of allude, I think, nowadays to being, oh, it was poor equipment or something, because that by the time we get to the 90s, thousands, people were taking it out. In fact, James Cameron is fascinated with taking film grain out of absolutely anything that he's ever shot because he thinks it's a defect. But I think it was very much of the time and the way things were shot on film that way. It is beautiful. Beautiful.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So I think it's I didn't really ever appreciate how it started before. I think this time I was paying more attention to little things, but where it starts at the wedding and the Godfather is established and people are coming to him for favors, we already know, we very quickly just know how powerful he is. And you learn about his kind of code, the man who comes from for help because his daughter was assaulted. And he says, well, why didn't you come to me? You don't invite me over for coffee. You don't invite me over, because even someone, he almost sees himself as still, a man of the people. And he wants loyalty and friendship and not just someone that, people come to for help. So very, very quickly you get the wedding with a backdrop of all this other stuff going on behind the scenes. So I thought that was a really great way to start the film.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there, Steve, because the opening has this like subtle opening notes, and it's which is kind of a contrast to a lot of the movies we've been seeing. A lot of these movies we've been seeing lately have this glaring, announcement type thing that's telling you this is a movie, and but this one kind of opens with these subtle opening notes that just draw you in, and you're drawn into the parlor of the Godfather, and then you see the wedding in the background going on, and it's really nice, and yeah, this guy pleading to the Godfather to help him. He expresses that belief in America, coming to America, and so it establishes where we are, and then we have and he's pleading to he's coming to America, but he's pleading to the Godfather almost as a kingly figure sitting in his throne there in the chair, and by the time they're done, you almost get the sense that he sold his soul to the devil in a way, and and then it moves out into the wedding scene and opens up the whole vista of some of the things that the film's about.
Yeah,
Family being one of them. Yeah,
the transfer to the wedding scene is kind of abrupt. Watching it once was like, and then the second time like, whoa, that the scene pops like there's a party going on and you're invited. It feels homely. It feels, yeah, like you said, family. I'm not a dancer, but I'm like, ooh, this is nice. Everybody's having a good time. I would go to a wedding like this. We don't have weddings like this. Feels traditional.
Yeah, those opening 26 minutes of the film are so clever. From start to finish, it really does set the tone for an awful lot of the interpersonal relationships at the start, and then in terms of like outside, the wedding's happening, everybody's very bright, there's a lot of singing, dancing, clapping, it's very sunny, and then we get the contrast to him sitting inside this dark office essentially, and people kind of even I love the scene of Dino Brasi practicing his speech that he's going to say to him, even though like he's this top hitman for the entire Corleone family, and he's terrified that he's going to offend somebody and all that kind of stuff. He's practicing it over and over and over again.
And we also get this wedding.
Yeah, and we get this introduction to Michael is very much on the outside at that stage. You know, he's very much on the outside. He's the person with somebody who's not from the family, who's not from the lineage, and kind of he's talking to her Kay, about how, you know, this is the world that he grows up in, but he's not like that. And again, that whole 26 minutes, we even get Sonny taking the girl upstairs, etc. It just so much character building with saying so little, because as you say, Jared, that bit where it looks like he sold the soul to the devil, we think that's going to come back in a big way later on, because that's traditionally, I think, what would happen in that. And we find out, and it really adds depth by the time we get later on, that man didn't have to sell his soul to the devil. He was literally just being asked to do a good job as a return of a favour in this speciality. And again, that from that point at the start of the film to there, we get a real sense of who Don Corleone is as a person and what's important to him and what's not important to him. Those relationships, even with the singer Johnny, comes in, and how he treats him as his godson and all that kind of stuff. It's so rich at that point, but it gives such a perfect springboard for everything else that happens in the film.
Yeah. It even sets up who's the asshat that is behind everything.
Yeah.
If you really pay attention, you notice, like, that's the guy. This is the dude that is behind everything.
Yeah.
And if you don't see it, you don't see it. But it's so subtle, because it's the picture. It's with the picture. His picture gets taken. And the way he reacts, you're like, this one.
Yeah.
Take him. Get him out. What is his name? Barzini?
Barzini, yeah.
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 I only noticed it the second time.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, Michael bringing in what's going to be his future wife. You mentioned him bringing her in, but he was also quite honest with her. about who he was and where he came from. He wasn't trying to hide the fact that his family was criminals and stuff like that. He was quite open and honest, and that of course plays into later in the film when he lies to her, but doesn't really lie to her, because when he closes that door, you know damn well that she knows he lied to her.
Yeah.
So it's it really like you said, just wonderful character building, and that led to so many things later on that were significant.
That duality of the wedding and everyone having fun and singing and dancing, and then there's this back room where they're plotting murder, and there's two sides of this person where he values family and he cares for his family, but he's also willing to kill someone with, just to help someone else without really any questions asked. But with Michael, I think he's very matter of fact, and he's not shameful. He's not boastful. He's just kind of, that my father helped him become where he is. Do you want to meet him? Like, this person helps my father. This person helps my family. It's very just, this is kind of what
that's
it is.
That's the family.
Yeah.
That's everybody. There, coming back to the film grain, just a small thing. So when Don Corleone watches Michael come in and he's looking through the window, the film grain disappears for that scene. It's really weird.
Interesting.
We're like, why? It's like they forgot that scene existed, but no.
Yeah.
It's one of the many things. There's a scene later that I will mention if we talk about it. But it's like,
cool.
What is that? Who didn't see this on the camera? I mean, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. I think one last thing about that opening scene. I actually think one of the reasons people forget how good it is Pacino himself, because Pacino, not long after this, became really demonstrative in nearly every role that he did. And he's so withdrawn and so quiet and so understated for most of this movie that it's really chilling and effective. I think because we know what Pacino kind of did later, and you sort of forget why he's so brilliant in this movie, like in doing so a lot with so little the whole way through it. And it's almost a pity that he became sort of typecast or kind of given scripts that were pushing the other side of it, the explosive side of it, too much.
Mr.
Because now it didn't say that he did it all the time, but certainly a lot of the things that he becomes noted for later in his life, like Scarface and that kind of stuff, became very much this. But it just gives this parallel between him and his father in a way that Sonny doesn't. And when we kind of see how they run the show, you can kind of see that actually power is about smarts and it's about intelligence. It's actually not about balance or anything like that. That was the thing. Even though they both can do valid and be responsible for valid, balanced things, but that's not the bit that makes them scary or to be respected or feared. It's what's going on behind, which is one of the reasons that Tom Hagen is probably my favorite character from all of these movies as well, because he just sits in the background, legs crossed usually, listens, doesn't say much, and says things very simply.
Yeah. And you had Brando's role, Marlon Brando as well.
Yeah.
It's funny because when you're watching this, and I thought he was unbelievable. I thought, because everybody does all the imitations of him, and all the imitations are way overstated compared to what he actually does in the movie. And then you go back and watch in the movie, and you're like, oh, he just actually said that line that everybody repeats. But I almost missed it because it was so subtle and so well done, you know.
And it's a real thing for that to sound natural, given the amount that it's been mimicked over the years. Right. I think that's really the point that I get. You know, that it comes out and you go, "Oh, that was like cinema history there," but it became sounded like something you would normally say, even though it wasn't. You know,
but that performance you mentioned, that answers the question that I had for you. Then, there are people that have issues with Marlon Brando and James Caan not being Italian.
Yeah,
while most or the rest of the family are real Italians. For me, I didn't have any issue with it, but you guys know nothing.
Well, this was one of the criticisms I had. I think it's like when we did Lawrence of Arabia earlier on that again this set a film in a Muslim country or otherwise, and it's like all British and American white men with their faces painted. It's a real problem. In this one, I mean, I don't see it because I think Brando is a spectacular actor. You know, getting an Italian to play it, he would have probably not have been as good, regardless of their lineage or their cultural background. And I think it works for Santino because he is so diverse and different. They need him to be kind of actually less Italian and more American in some ways because he is sort of carried away with the money, the riches, the fame, and all of that kind of stuff in ways that he can convey. Like, I'll give you Fredo, who is in this, is also the same. And he is of sort of lineage, but it's not as effectively portrayed because James Caan's kind of that over the top for me anyway. Yeah, it works. I think the casting is so good in this film in general. Yeah.
Yep.
And we quickly learn how worthless Fredo is.
Yes.
And it's funny that there's the scene where Sonny he speaks up during one of the meetings when they're trying to. Another thing is when they're trying to have the deal to get into the drug market, the drug trade. And Sonny speaks up and he says, "Excuse my son, I've something like I've spoiled my children. They don't know when to listen when they don't know when to listen when they talk when they should listen or something like that."
Yeah, exactly.
And so in a way, he's almost admitting that his kids aren't as prepared for the life because he was, I guess, easy on them, or he didn't spend enough time raising them a certain way. Like he wanted them to have a better life, and they turned out like Fredo, who, you know, I don't want to say what's going to happen later in this series because I don't completely remember everything, but I'm sure we'll talk more about Fredo later. But he's just, him and Sonny's really impulsive. The only one who really is level-headed seems to be Michael, and Connie, of course, is she marries this man who is abusive and doesn't seem. How does he not seem to take the beating seriously at the first time? I mean, I don't know. That seems like an odd choice.
But I think that says an awful lot to Carlo as a character. He's just full of this male ego and hubris to basically say, I'm going to pay him back. Again, I think that idea of retribution and revenge has floated a lot through the film. And Don Corleone, even when he's shot, he's restrained about it and picks the right time, like Michael does later on in the film. It's got to be about timing. It can't be about impulsivity, like Sonny does, and kind of showing that difference between those characters and again, smarts versus rashness.
Yeah, and the violence is very cyclic in the film. It, what comes around goes around, and it happens again and again.
Yeah.
And Michael is the favorite, so you get it from the beginning. Like, he's waiting for Michael. Michael needs to be in the picture. Michael, he's the one son that I did right. That's what it feels like.
Yeah. Well, it also feels like, from the conversation later on, like he had a very definite plan with Michael. I think Michael's the youngest, isn't he? So he's the one by the time he kind of set through that he had plans for him to be a senator. And for him to be a senator, he needed to plan his ascension through the ranks and so much. And it was sort of changed a little bit by the events that happened. But he's the one that he seemed to have a plan for, whereas the other ones he probably did spoil, didn't probably have the time and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead, Joshua.
You see that change in that one scene. The moment that he's next to the bed when his father has been shot. And then he picks up the phone to call, and then he looks at the nurse, you wait. And then you see, like, click, I need to be in charge here. I will take care of this family. That is the moment that he changes everything that was set up for him. And it's amazing. You see it, like Pacino is acting, like you said, he's so on the down low in this movie, and then he just looks and you're like, I see what he did there. I see what he's going to do.
Totally. Yeah.
And I love how some of his dialogue when he's saying things reflects exactly what's going on somewhere else, where he says where he's telling somebody like I'm with you, and something else going on somewhere else is a complete betrayal of his family. Like when the guy the enforcer there, he's putting on the vest, the bulletproof vest, yeah,
Yeah.
and in that beautifully framed shot, it really emphasizing him putting on the vest, and of course later on he gets garroted, so the vest was kind of useless. And but there's just this big deeper meaning into some of the things that he's saying when he's saying them. I mean, I think he was talking to his father, and he's talking. He was talking to their plans, and it had to do around the baptism or something like that. I forget the exact scene, but it was just the contrast was just continually going on between what was happening with the family and what was happening to build up the conflict outside of the family that was moving in on them. And I just love how it happened. It was so subtle, so well done.
So we moved from, we've got the wedding, and then the drug deal. The drug deal, he's thinking about it, but he's like, drugs is something dirty. I don't want it. I don't need it. America doesn't need this. Sonny speaking out of turn, and then the events leading up to everything, including the shooting afterwards. It was like, yeah, everything just was gonna go to shit. You know this was gonna happen, and you're looking at it like, this is so slow and so deliberate, as you know what's going to happen. He's going for you have the scene with the shopping, and then eventually he's alone in the office. Fredo is going to drive him because Paulie wasn't there, and then I want some fruit, and it's all so slow, and you know it. You just know it. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. He overplayed a bit with the shooting. That scene, like falling off the car, was like, sure, sir.
Well, he was never a stuntman, but
Yeah.
but that look he gives before the explosion, that look he gives was just like, hit you right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fredo sitting next to him. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. It is kind of a precursor to what the drug trade, not that violence wasn't a part of their life before that, because obviously gambling, alcohol, prostitution, all those things, I'm sure there's plenty of violence and murder and mayhem, but I think the level and the brutality, I think, that we start to see ramp up is a precursor to the drug trade and how it changed everything because of the money involved. So it's interesting to see how his code, even though it'd be profitable and lucrative, he still said no. And
it's sort of a thematic kind of look at America, I think, in a lot of ways, because the drugs is the thing that broke their code of honor. It was the thing that even within the families, the Italian families in New York, was the bit that actually split them up. And as you say, Steve, sort of the same for America as a whole, because I think by the time you get to the third film, that's pretty much what this series is about. Again, this first generation, second generation American, and how it integrates into society, and whether people, what is the American dream and all of that kind of stuff is sort of what this morphs into in some ways. And like all of that stuff's kind of just sitting in the background, because again, we often say this, like this is in some ways, because it's a strike, it's almost like a fantasy in some ways. It sort of uses a kind of period setting and kind of plays a lot of this stuff out with characters that are sort of larger than life and, you know, very powerful and seem to have superpowers and that kind of stuff. So it's to me, it's almost like a fantasy film, because it kind of uses those thematic ideas and plays with what is happening in America in the 70s in a period setting.
Yeah, and it's very epic in scope as well.
Yeah, very, very much so.
But
ticks the box for Oscar film, doesn't it? That, epic in scope, Oscar winning film.
Yeah,
and has a message. Because I just watched the documentary of the movie that almost wasn't. So the film was in trouble. But it was for him something about capitalism in America. Like, it was his take on it, including all the next generation stuff. But yeah, he talked about that. So, like, in short, in that documentary that I just watched. But it was interesting. Like, didn't think of that.
yeah. Oh yeah, and then what do you guys think about the Italy scenes?
Sicily scenes.
Sicily, yeah.
Well, the just very 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 quickly, the whole restaurant scene where the gun's hidden.
Oh yeah,
so good. That whole build up,
amazing.
looking for the gun. Where you going? I'm gonna go to the restroom, and they're waiting for him as he's looking for the gun behind the. It's hidden. Was the gun left? You start to wonder, was the gun left there? What is he gonna do?
Yeah.
Of course, I knew what he was gonna do because I've seen it before. But still, all the build up and the tension, that it just masterfully done. The whole sequence.
Yeah, it's
and
that
then the haunting in his eyes.
Yeah.
And I love
the gun. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, right? You knew we were supposed to toss the gun, and as many times as I've seen this film, I'm still yelling at the screen, "Get rid of the gun! Get rid of the gun!"
Yeah. Because we were told exactly what was going to happen in that scene.
Yep.
We were literally told the sequence of events, which is how they create the suspense, because we're waiting for the next bit that comes in the story. So by the time we get to the end of it, and he doesn't drop it to his side and just let it fall to the floor and does this sort of toss, it's the first time that he breaks from the plan, and it's so masterfully written. Like, it's the screenplay and narrative choices in this are absolutely on point.
Something else about that scene, what I found interesting in the documentary, that was a scene that decided that they were going to keep Coppola. Is it Coppola?
That's Ford Coppola,
Yeah, like how you pronounce it. But that is a scene that decided that he would keep on making the movie or not.
Right.
So Paramount decided on that scene, like, okay, he can keep on making the movie, because they had people in the background waiting to take over.
Yeah, it was a TV series they made of this, actually, didn't it, a couple of years ago? Not just a documentary. It was there was also a dramatization, I think, of this thing. I think it was on Paramount Plus. But anyway, I'll have to look that one up. But yeah, it's sort of troubled background, almost sort of life imitating art, that kind of thing.
Yeah. But then, Sicily. The way the two bodyguards / hunters interact with him on that social thing, and then looking at the ladies, and the free spirit of everything, sitting down at that cafe and then ordering a drink, talking to the guy about, we saw some Bellas, beautiful women, and then finding out that it's his daughter. It's amazing.
But I was always wondering about the sort of casual betrayal of those guys, of Michael, and how that kind of folded into the different attitude of the people there compared to the Italians in America. And it seemed to have, because you went there and you had this completely different change of gears in how people lived. Like you said, the nice relaxed atmosphere, the talking about, being careful about who they were looking at, and Michael being very forward about his intentions with her father and stuff like that. And then towards the end, they those two guys who were with him almost all the time.
Every second, yeah.
Kind of just shrug and betray him, and then they're like, sorry, dude, and and off they go, and
Yeah.
it's quite a contrast to the in your face, I have it out for you kind of confrontation that they had in America, and it was just that whole thing was just like, wow, that's it's so different, and it's shot differently there, and it just looks different. And then when he gets back to America, we're back into the craziness almost, and but still just as deadly. And I love how they portrayed that contrast.
Those few seconds before with the betrayal, looking at each other, and then the few seconds with the explosion is monumental. That was like first time I saw it. I was, really, whoa.
But the whole thing is set up to show the shift in Michael again, his character. Again, it shifts in a little bit. You see the confidence of him approaching the father when they all just wanted to run away because they had caused offence, and he takes the bull by the horns and does that. And then that moment when the car blows up, being very, again, sort of delayed within the film, because it's not until the very end of the film that you actually, I think, realise that this was not retribution for the father's life. This was retribution to the things that happened to him, and him being in charge of the family and the Godfather. He was killing all those guys because of what they did to him. Mm-hmm. And it was not about his brother or anything like that. The thing's really subtle, I think, in a lot of those ways, and that's why he can lie to Kay at that point. He's a changed man from that car blowing up at that stage. His honour is gone because they're all fighting dirty. He's trying to fight clean, and they won't let him.
Yeah, and you're right, because in direct contrast to what he's doing and his change into that harsher, changed person who's no longer has that sense he's ever going to get out of this, that he's ever going to go legit or what have you. In contrast to that, his father actually just ends up dying normally.
Yes.
After all that, getting shot and all that, he ends up just dying normally in a garden.
Oh, what a scene. What a scene. Him lying there is the menu for the Blu-ray. Just with music. Like, he's lying there with music, and that's it. And then I have play the movie scenes and languages, and I'm like, well, wow.
And the contrast of the kid thinking he's playing, and him laughing and stuff. And again, it's sort of beautiful, that scene in some ways, because that's how his life ended, and not in it sort of leads very nicely into Godfather Part 2 and what they explore in Godfather Part 2, but his life before that. It's just so impactful, I think, and kind of sets off a springboard of the new dawn and the new change, the new generation that's coming in behind.
Yeah. Absolutely.
What about the setup with Sonny? Getting him out of the house. That whole thing. Did you guys like, yep, this is gonna be a setup, or because it's about he kicked the guy around, so the husband of his sister, after he beat her, and then he beats her again, and you see it happen. Like, whoa, this is a real row. He's going at it, and then going from that scene to she calls, and then he gets in the car, like, he's mad. Did you think that would happen? Did you feel like this is going that way?
It's the bit of the film that I'd forgotten, I have to say, about Sonny Dan. I'd forgotten that happened. But they do set it up within the film, I think, very well, because this idea of respect, especially between Italian males, he publicly disrespected Carlo, so in that case he was going to react out. And if you compare it to his father, who was very careful not to disrespect people, even though he had plenty of cause lots of time, even the disrespect that he knew Carlo had toward his daughter, Connie, you know, he didn't get involved in that because that was her choice and blah, 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 whereas Sonny was much more impulsive. He had to act in it and be rash and do all that kind of stuff, and it cost him his life. And Don Corleone Vito talks about that in the point of, like, it was just too impulsive. He was not a good Don. He couldn't have done it because he just needed to act in the minute all the time. Rather than just kind of watching it for what it was. So, in retrospect, it was set up very well. You should have been able to see it, but I definitely did not.
Yeah.
That's funny. I really don't remember because it was so long ago the first time I saw it, and of course, every time after that I'm expecting it, so it's like more obvious. But I don't remember at all if I was surprised or not.
I think you kind of get the feeling something was not that it was on purpose, but him leaving by himself. And they were trying to tell him to wait, and they're going after him. And it going to the guard shacks where the gates are. It felt very, something's not quite right here. Something's, and the poor guard. Just like pretends he dropped something.
Still gets shot.
So that's unfortunate.
But again, cleverly written in much the same way as the restaurant scene. This one, because this is the second time it's happened, I think we as the audience kind of go, oh, Sonny's going to get him. He's going to regret that. You know, we're sort of caught in the emotional backlash of that ourselves because of what's happening to Connie. And
that scene is pretty horrific.
He's pretty horrific. So we're riled up as an audience to support Sonny, going, get in the car, get there fast. You know, all that kind of stuff. And then we see the play again, very, very clever.
Yeah. For me, one of the best scenes for Marlon Brando himself is one of those iconic moments that everybody imitates when Sonny's on that table and you see his brow go up and then he says, look how they massacred my boy. But the way he says it is, he's not crying, but something in my gut goes, oh God, I need to be a man now. This is...
He's just a father at that stage.
Yeah.
You know, and they didn't kill him clean. They humiliated him in the middle and left him lying dead in the middle of the street, you know, and drove off, and, you know, it's that kind of disrespect. But again, he can't act on it in that moment because he knows that's the wrong play. That's the wrong thing to do. Long game.
The long game.
Yeah. Did it seem like to you guys that during the funeral for Don Corleone that you had a very similar setup of people as that was at the wedding?
Yeah.
And you had all those same faces standing around. You had all these, and I don't remember if well, that's neither here nor there. But I just love the subtle looks and the subtle, you know, Al Pacino looking around, talking to his people in a certain way, giving certain signs, you know, and looking at what's his name, Tessio. And the way that all came about, I thought that was brilliant. I was just like, wow, it takes me back to that wedding scene, but it's such a different atmosphere and a different, nobody's jumping around, everybody's still, you know, and it's just like almost the opposite, but shot in a similar manner.
That is the other scene that I wanted to mention. So they zoom in on him, and then he stands up. But there's glare in the lens from the sun. And with him standing up, the camera shifts up and you see a face from someone sitting like underneath the camera or next to the camera. You see that face on his chest.
Oh, really?
So suddenly it's like, what is going on here? Yeah. Because there's, I think, like the filter or something in front of the camera reflects that. I was like, oh, whoa.
That's crazy.
It took me out of the moment for a bit, but...
Yeah, the other thing to say about that, again, contrasted with the scene at the start, so the dealings that were happening in the wedding were happening behind closed doors in that small room. Whereas, again, this was part of the thing. The dealings were happening in broad daylight. They were going up to Barzini and shaking his hand and doing all those same conversations, but in broad daylight in front of everybody. And that kind of...
And smiling.
Brashness and that kind of stuff. They thought they were beyond reproach, and ultimately their dealings being out in the open were what cost them and enabled Michael to be sure of what was happening and what was going on. You know, they weren't smart about it or otherwise, but again, very much a contrast of those, the death and the wedding and that kind of stuff. Beautifully done.
His father also mentioned the fact they will want to sit you down somewhere where it's safe, and then they will kill you.
Yeah.
That was great.
And whoever comes and approaches you is the one who betrayed you.
Yep.
So good.
And the wedding too was, they're in a position of strength, and they're in a position of, they have everything. It seems like they have everything under control. And at the funeral, they're very vulnerable, and they're on the lookout for who's trying to betray us. And they're not in a very powerful position. They're more of a vulnerable position. So it's great. I just love this movie.
Yeah,
it's so good.
We all do, apparently.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit Tom Hagen's scenes. So about when he goes to see the movie producer initially, about getting the part in, and then
that's right.
Again, he's so restrained about it. Just matter of fact, he wants Johnny the part, what it would take, blah blah blah. And he gets turned down, and again, nothing happens. And again, I remember the first time watching this thinking, oh, Tommy Hagen's left and went back and somebody else has got the horse's head. But no, quite obviously, Tom Hagen killed the horse before he left and did all that because nobody else knew in it. It was just sort of, but you don't ever see Tom Hagen doing that kind of level of violence. He always just sits in the background and is just kind of very in control all the time, but it obviously was him that was responsible for the death of the $600,000 horse or whatever it was, the one that was put out to stud. So effective and so like that, waking up covered in blood and all of that. Oh,
that dude is power, and I forgot that was Robert Duvall. I was looking. Oh my, is that her?
Yeah,
I was confused.
Brilliant role.
Yeah.
And especially with him being like the adopted son as well. Again, this kind of coerced, very obviously not Italian American, but, being brought up by Vito and the family to be one of theirs and included and being given a role within to be the lawyer of the family going forward because he could probably translate in the other areas that people would never allow Italian Americans, who wouldn't take them as seriously. All very cleverly devised and put together. Like Mario Puzo's book must be some read. I've never actually read it.
It's interesting that you point that out, that he was the one responsible for the horse, when the whole time later on, everyone's telling him, you're not a wartime consigliere.
Yes.
You're a good consigliere, but you're not a wartime. And I'm just like, you feel bad for him, at points when they keep telling him this stuff, but he's so like he just takes it. He doesn't lash out. He doesn't speak again. Like he doesn't stick up for himself with the family there, and he just takes it silently and sits back and does his job efficiently. And it's pretty amazing how that all worked out.
Same in the diner when he gets like picked up and then like stay calm, and it's like he's calm the whole time. He gets a drink, they explain the situation to him, there's someone sitting in the back like in the dark, the whole threat thing, and he's like, there's nothing happening, there's nothing I can do.
All of those scenes with him, he just sort of almost plays the fool an awful lot of time, that he's just a nobody. He's just nobody to be afraid of, or otherwise. When Kay wants him to deliver the letter, and he goes, nobody even knows where he is, and she says, "Well, can I get this?" And it's the first time he ever really breaks when he says, "Now, if I was to do that, that would be me admitting that I might have some way to find him, and I can't take that letter from you." And even when they're walking Tessio with the car, and again he's walking out almost with his arm around Tessio, and then they come in and they're all looking at Tom Hagen at that stage, like they're all, this is just what's happening because Tom's there, and Tom's going, it's just the way it is, It's just nothing to do with me really. I'm just the lawyer. You know what can you say? It's
An Irish lawyer.
Yeah, just so again showing what power looks like. I think that's another thing that I really love about this: how power can look different to different people, and who wields power, and who who's to be afraid of, and who's to be don't underestimate people, and all of that kind of stuff.
He's a dog that doesn't bark, but bites.
And that smirk that he carries around his face most of the time, just nice guy, Tom.
And he breaks. Eventually with the. Sonny's dead, but he hasn't told the Dawn yet.
Yes.
And he's drinking. The Dawn comes downstairs, and then that little thing. So it's that bad that you have to be drinking, and then the Dawn stands up and goes to him, and then so puts his head there, and then he breaks for a second, and then that's over. Yeah. All amazing actors.
Oh, then we got the this 5-year legitimate plan that Michael's going to work on with the whole move to Vegas thing. Yeah.
Good to see Fredo again.
Good to see Fredo again. Get to see and get to see the Michael really reinforcing his new role with Fredo. Don't ever take sides against the family. That was I thought that was just brilliant by Michael and Pacino, and in that acting in that role right there. It was just like, wow, man, that was scary when he said that.
Yeah, and I think the character Mo Green's played really well. Again, another one of these people that are going, "Do you know who I am? You can't do this to me." Again, this very disrespectful tone, and almost Fredo kind of signed his own fate. He's very impressed by that kind of stuff as well. You can see that he's impressed by the likes of Mo Green and other people around it, basically saying, "Mike, these people are too powerful for you to be messing with," and you get that quiet threat from Michael, as you quite rightly say, Jared, where it's like, I don't think you've read this situation quite correctly. That line of "we're going to make them offers they can't refuse" is the sort of code for like there's no baseline for where we'll stop. This is a given that this is going to happen. It's just under whose terms and under which terms it's going to happen.
They almost feel like a fish out of water in Vegas because they're wearing dark suits and everyone else is wearing really bright colors, and they're really carefree and really kind of, loose and not very, let's party, then we'll talk business. And they come in very stern and, no, I'm here for business. I'm not here to, I don't have any time to waste kind of thing. So that you do get that they seem like they're out of their element a little bit. So you start to, I think that's why they're not taken too seriously, because they seem like you're not powerful here because you're way far away from home. This is our world. And then they quickly find out that it's really not.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah. So, and of course, the ultimate scene at the end, I renounced them. Every time somebody dies, you hear him say that. I just love that. That gave me chills.
Yeah, it's a crazy scene.
Yeah. Yeah. Just the meaning behind them, because it's in reference to the baptism of who was it that was getting baptized? I forget whose kid it was.
The son of his
son, Connie and Carlo. Yeah.
So his nephew, yeah. And he's just repeating back what the priest is saying and saying the right words, but it's contrasted, of course, with him renouncing the other 5 families of the Italians.
It's
just like
that
unbelievable scene.
That payoff.
Fantastic editing, fantastic. Just the whole putting together that whole sequence was just outstanding.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it gets ripped off in a lot of movies that you feel like something is happening in the background, and it's cool and music and like Godfather. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like it's a culmination of all these different storylines that come to a conclusion from the start of the movie. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah. His sister, we haven't talked about his sister, as in the actress.
Yeah.
I like her acting, and it's a coincidence that she is like in two things that are like. She has The Godfather, and then she has Rocky. I forgot she was in Rocky as well. Adrienne.
Yep.
But even though she's part of that family, she's so hysterical and whimsical. At certain points, I'm like, do you know what this family does? This is your family. But she tries to just be different, and it's all like coming down really fast. I feel for her the whole time, like, oh, you made some wrong choices there, lady. I'm so I feel so sorry for you. And she keeps on defending her husband, and then when that is the point where Michael becomes the most scary for me, when he's like really reassuringly talking to her husband, like, we know it was, I know it was you. It's fine. We'll put you on a plane, and that's it. But then, yeah, so obviously he gets killed, and then that she's so surprised about it. I mean, if it wasn't Michael, it was going to be Sonny, obviously, but yeah, he was gonna get killed anyway.
Yeah, it also speaks to the role of the females within those kind of New York mafia families as well, and about how the women, again, Vito's wife, is just seen at the making dinner or singing at the wedding. You know, we don't really see her involved in the business of her father, and it sort of, I think, relates to when Kay speaks to Michael. You don't talk to me about business about the family. That's not your role. You know, he gets very angry about it. At that stage, you don't ask me about business of the family. And again, it'll be a good contrast to, say, the third film and the change in role of women in society and that kind of stuff as well. So
yeah, there's almost like this code that they're supposed to keep the women, protect them.
Yep.
And they protect them by not letting them have access to what they're doing, as well as protecting them, physically, but protecting them from information as well. And I think that last scene of Michael closing the door on his wife was the ultimate, nope, got to put up the shield. Sorry.
yeah.
Yeah. With the women and children, that was one thing that irked me with both viewings, that suddenly I noticed the amount of screaming children in this movie is way too much. Way too many children that are screaming the whole time. On the phone, screaming. Playing, screaming. At the funeral, screaming. I'm like, oh, what? Who kicked that kid during filming? Why?
Yeah, with the big family with all the kids, I'm sure someone's always crying.
Yeah.
So it was to make more realistic. Okay, yeah, okay. Gotcha.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we do have The Godfather 2 in, well, we have The Sting and then The Godfather 2, but there is no Godfather 3. Did not win the year that was eligible.
I hate the third part. Does not exist in
I don't
my
think I've
canon.
seen the third one.
It just doesn't exist. Sorry. What are you talking about? What is this movie you speak of? If you want something bad, I can always reference.
Oh, the games.
The games. I thought you were going to talk about Tom Jones or Oliver there for a second, Joshua. Sorry.
No, they made it into a video game, and it's different. It is different. But they used the original voices.
Oh, interesting. The Mafia games are ones that I really like, actually.
Yeah. They are better. They are way better.
I love that sense, but yeah. Looking forward to, I mean, the 70s have started off strong. They're rocking and rolling.
Oh, yeah. French Connection, Godfather. Next is...
The Sting.
Yeah.
I don't have that one, so I'm sorry, I will not be joining you.
Yeah, missing out. Sting is a great movie.
I haven't seen that one. So, Joshua, I know it's your first time joining us, but so where does this fit on the list for Oscar winners that we watched? I mean, The Apartment's been dethroned. I think that's not, I love The Apartment. It's number 2, but Godfather's obviously number 1. So where does it fit for you guys?
Yeah. It's a good question. These two are very hard not to put the past 2 years in the 1 and 2 slot. Like I keep on saying, West Side Story is probably my number 2. I have such fondness for that general production, rather than film or otherwise. I've seen so many stage versions of it, etc. So it'll be number 2, and then probably goes Midnight Cowboy, then Into the Hidden Night, and then French Connection, probably. But they're all magnificent.
I need to rewatch The French Connection, and I never finished Midnight Cowboy.
Oh, it's so good.
And I bet those two would be very high on that list. But without a doubt, The Godfather is number 1 of what I see here in this list. I liked West Side Story, loved Lawrence of Arabia, Tom Jones. My Fair Lady was amazing. Sound of Music is amazing.
Steve loves Tom Jones. Loves Tom Jones.
That movie.
That's a personal favorite.
Really?
Someone had to do favors that year for that one. Somebody got
really.
something out of it.
For me, the most interesting conversation over the next couple of months will be Godfather 2 versus Godfather 1. Because I've always had a very strong belief in which one was my favourite film, but then watching them in sort of close proximity to each other, I think will be interesting to
be cool. Yeah.
But I'm seeing some heavy hitters that would surpass The Godfather for me.
Ooh. Oh, really?
100%.
Christ, it's a good movie.
Driving Miss Daisy, watch out.
Driving Miss Daisy, Big E.
Oh, seriously. Oof. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's gone. It's off the list now. It's not even in the top 5 anymore.
Oh my God. Never be invited back. Well, it was good to have you, Joshua. That was
it was fun.
Where's the trapdoor? The button for the trapdoor.
Amazing.
Yeah, but I would put Sound of Music above West Side Story. I like the Sound of Music. It was pretty good.
Banger after banger after banger. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Godfather's up to number 1, and Apartment's up there. I still love Lawrence of Arabia. I know it was long and drawn out, but it's hard to beat that cinematography in that one.
Yeah.
French Connection's good. But I think I like Midnight Cowboy better than the French Connection.
Yeah, I do.
So
that was a really solid story. Really good.
And very different as well. Like we looked at the types of movies. The one, like even Cabaret was very heavily represented in this year. Even though The Godfather, like Cabaret walked away with so many awards. Joel Grey is great in Cabaret, but he was up against James Caan, Al Pacino, and it was the third
Brando.
Well, Brando won the Best Actor. There was 3 Godfather people in the. It must have been Robert Duvall. For the 3 of them, and Joel Grey won, and he is great in Cabaret, but it shows you the kind of still the pervasive strength of musicals, even at this time.
Cool.
And also, speaking of just before we wrap up, talking about length, this did not feel like a 3-hour movie.
Yeah.
No.
Nope.
At all. Did not feel the length at all.
It hardly wastes a scene, you see, and every scene has value, and every interaction has value. It does not feel drawn out at all, and it just shows kind of the difference between movies can be long but not have, gaps or downtime in them. Certain movies feel long.
You mean like Patton?
Oh,
I didn't want to call anybody up. I would include Lawrence of Arabia in that as well. Like, I think it has a lot of wasted scenes as well in that.
yeah.
But Def Patton is a much worse offender, for sure.
When you're watching the movie and you cry because you only just got to the intermission.
And when you start telling yourself it's about halfway over and you're like 20 minutes in, like, okay.
Yeah. Oh, God.
I have to say, The Godfather is one of those movies that does not trigger my ADD. I can watch that entire movie without ever being bored or like, I have to do something, or it's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's interesting you say about Coppola nearly didn't get to finish this film, because the 70s pretty much are the decade of Coppola in terms of great movies. He's responsible for so many of this decade and how different things might have been.
Including Patton.
So I need to watch Patton, right? That was the one that you.
No, you're okay. Yeah, this is
You're
what I
right.
watch all of them.
Every film has a fan. Every film has a fan. Just because we weren't fans.
Patton has a lot of fans, actually.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fans. Oliver has a lot of fans.
Yeah.
There are opinions that are wrong, but there are opinions, yes.
I would still watch Patton over Oliver. Like, I have to say, Oliver's just...
It's pretty painful.
I can't.
I would watch it over Tom Jones, too.
I'd watch Lawrence of Arabia and Patton back to back before I watched Tom Jones one time.
Wow. That is
let's fast forward 3 or 4 years. We're doing the great Oscars rewatch project.
Yeah.
We pick only the best movies. So Oliver, Tom Jones, Patton. Okay, yeah, fine.
Painful.
Painful is right. Yeah.
So next up is The Sting.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that one. So, but
have you seen it, Jared?
About 30 years ago, so I don't remember anything.
Okay. Interesting. And then we're in 74, the greatest year of cinema, quite possibly. Or no, sorry, 75. Sorry, I'm talking about 75, the greatest year of cinema, quite possibly.
That one I can do as well.
Yeah.
That one I have. And that one I love because I have multiple copies of that.
Copies of them. Okay. We'll get to that. Plenty more to look forward to. Always good.
Oh yeah, lots of good stuff. So until next time, Jared, where can people find you?
You can find me at the Fantasy Thinker YouTube channel. You can find me on Speculative Speculations podcast, and you can find me on Panel Chewing podcast and some other places on pagechewing.com.
And Chris.
Yes, you can find me in the Chronicle of Chris YouTube channel and on all those places that Jared talked about, but the exception probably a Panel Tune, although I sort of work away on that kind of stuff in the background.
Join us for that sometime. And Joshua.
On the Page Chewing forum.
Nice.
So thanks everyone for coming along the journey with us, or if it's your first time listening, welcome. And yeah, we'll see everyone, or we'll talk to everyone next time. And until then, hope everyone has a great day, and we'll talk to you very soon.